Hey there, Pastor Jory. I want to hear you do a homily on 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 23 through 24. It's about them bears. Get at it. It's your turn to preach. Tag, you're it.
Last week, Pastor Nick contacted me and gave me the challenge of 2 Kings 2, 23 through 24. Let's read that now. From the NIV version. From there, Elisha went up to Bethel. As he was walking along the road, some boys came out of the town and jeered at him. "Get out of here, Baldy," they said. "Get out of here, Baldy." He turned around, looked down at them, and called down a curse on them in the name of the Lord. Then two bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick. That's a fun passage to read. And one question that we always have with this is one of those stories that constantly comes up whenever you're in ministry, where people ask, "What's the meaning of this story?" Oh, this doesn't really mesh well with our 21st century ideas of what it means to be a messenger of God, a prophet of God, or somebody in ministry at all, or anybody who's a Christian. You shouldn't call upon a curse on people. Well, the way we can look at this is also a way of God upholding his end of the bargain, and letting us have our free will. If we think about this idea of Elisha, what happened before this passage was that his mentor, Elijah, had been carried away on the fiery chariot across the Jordan. Elisha has asked for a double portion of Elijah's blessing. The Lord gives him this double portion, and then Elisha parts the water just like Elijah did in the Jordan to cross over back into Jericho. In Jericho, he then heals a cursed or a dirty watered area, and the water becomes pure and able to be drunk by people. And so we see Elisha already starting to act upon this double blessing. And then he's now attacked, we could say, verbally attacked by these, some versions might say young men, some children, some boys. We don't know the age of these people. These boys, these men, we guess they'd probably be in the range of 10 to 20 years old. We have no idea, but we know there's 42 of them. Which, if one person walking through, a field and 42 people come up to you, that seems kind of, you might be worried about your own safety, understandably. You might not be knowing why these 42 people are coming after you. And even if, they are teenagers, 42 teenagers against one man who's probably in his 50s and 60s, that person might still feel threatened. So what does Elisha do? Well, these people, these kids, these boys, these men, whatever you want to call them, start verbally attacking Elisha, calling him bald, calling him, just using verbal abuse to this man, for no real reason other than what we could assume would be that he would be in the garments, he had the mantle on of Elijah. So they might have recognized Elisha as now a prophet, as somebody of the Jewish line, and understanding who they're worshiping. The boys here probably were not Jewish, were probably worshiping other gods, and so they come out and they start jeering at him, mocking him probably for his religion, mocking him for how he looks. That's probably what we see. That's all we really see. And then Elisha doesn't specifically curse them with the bears, but he does call down a curse on the boys with the Lord's name involved. Here we can see God has given him power. God has given Elisha authority, and he's already exercised it a couple of times with the waters, doing other little miracles, miraculous signs. So we see Elisha knows he has authority and God has given him power. Here we could even say Elisha abuses this power. Elisha doesn't do what probably could have been better. He could have done something better with it. He could have shown the mercy, shown the glory of God to these people, and they could have turned away from their sins. They could have come and understood who Christ, or not Christ, but who understood who God was. Remember, the Jewish people were to be the lamp to everybody else in the area. They were to show who God was. And we understand throughout the Old Testament, God is very much merciful. God always gives you another chance. Elisha really doesn't. Elisha, after being offended, after being attacked by these boys, calls a curse down on them. And uses actually the name of the Lord, which is even more powerful than a normal just curse. You curse somebody, but Elisha, a prophet, calls upon the name of the Lord to do it, and he's already been shown to have power and authority given by God. And this is when these two bears come out and maul the children, maul 42 of the people. We have to also remember it says 42 of them, so there's actually probably more. It looks like a small platoon, a small army is gathered to attack Elisha. So yeah, he's worried. And does he overreact? That's also a possibility. But I think the idea is we can see that Elisha is still human. God has given him authority, given him power, but he doesn't mean God now dictates every single thing Elisha does. In fact, we see Elisha now has the freedom to do whatever he wants. Whether that's good or bad, he has this authority. He's been given this power. His choice here might not have been the best one. He might have abused it a little bit. We don't really see him do this again. We see him raise people from the dead. We see him do more blessings ideas. We see him bless more people around him than he does curse people. And so we could also see here that he probably wasn't even thinking that something would happen. He might have hoped something would happen, but didn't think that he would actually witness two bears come out and kill 42 people. And so perhaps watching this happen, he came to realize that this authority that's been placed on him isn't just, for fun to show people, but is an extreme, intense responsibility. Likewise, we have to acknowledge that as Christians, as people who follow Christ, all of our actions are also being watched. All of our actions are also going to be showing people who the Lord is, showing them who we believe Christ to be. And so, are we abusing our power as individuals, as the community of the church, whenever we don't support the poor, whenever we don't support policies or changes that would help those that are most desperately in need? Are we abusing our power and our money by not helping those that are in need, not being compassionate, not being merciful? We can look at Elisha and say that, perhaps the kids deserved it, which is understandable. But you have to also remember that we all deserve it then. Every one of us deserves to be mauled by bears. We all deserve to be killed because we've all sinned and we've all done terrible things in our lives. Some of us worse than others. But Christ is merciful and gives us this freedom of salvation. God has given us this freedom of salvation, which we can choose to accept through Christ. You can see that this story might not, like many stories in the Bible, might not be an example of how you should act, but perhaps a warning as to be careful of how you act. As we go throughout our week, this week during this pandemic, let's think about how we can best not take advantage of people. How can we use our authority, use our power, use our resources to help those in need rather than abuse it and hurt those that are in need or hurt those who don't know the Lord? That's what we need to think about this week.
It's your turn to preach, tag, you're it.
My challenge to you, Nick, is Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. Have fun with that.